inspired by kingdom principles that work for you.
Hello, thank you for joining us at Forward, Upward, Onward Together as a part of RBNTV. My name is Carey and I'll be your host. Forward, Upward, Onward Together is the name of the show. It's also the name of our national motto. And as you know, it speaks to us being forward-thinking, progressive, open-minded, and unified. And so today we'll be talking about our national challenges and issues today and in every show. We'll be talking about our national and topical issues and challenges that we face, as well as the many solutions and prospects that we do have. So today we'll be talking about business in the COVID era. And I'm so excited to speak with our guest for today. He was born in the historic community of Chippenham on the island of New Providence and has a wealth of experience in tourism and golf, in the business community and consultancy. And he currently is the outgoing CEO of the Bahamas Chamber of Commerce. Mr. Jeffrey Beckles believes that a strong community is vitally important for not just him, but for our entire society, and that a strong private sector is very important for a very strong economy and society. So please we welcome Mr. Jeffrey Beckles. Mr. Beckles, thank you so much for joining us at Forward, Upward, Onward Together.
Well, thank you, Carey. It is so great to be here with you today, and it's a pleasure, and look forward to the conversation today.
Absolutely. So you've served for the last 2 years and plus as the CEO of the Bahamas Chamber of Commerce and Employers Confederation. For those who may not know, tell us a little bit about what the Chamber does and how it supports the business community.
Well, thank you very much. And yeah, it's really been a pleasure to serve as a CEO for the Bahamas Chamber of Commerce and Employers Confederation. The Chamber of Commerce literally is the premier business advocate in the Bahamas. Our primary functions are to ensure that there's a careful balance between policymakers and the decisions made to support a very strong and robust, sustainable economy. And that may include everything from providing recommendations and feedback to legislative reviews and ease of doing business, and typically how the business environment is created in the Bahamas to allow domestic participation, international participation, to ensure that the Bahamas has a robust and sustainable economy.
Thank you. It plays a critical role in our economy as well as in many businesses that we have today. You know, we're here to talk about business in the COVID era, and we know that businesses have really felt a difficult time in the last 6 to 7 months since COVID emerged in the United States and in the Bahamas. So we know that unemployment is around 40%. Tell us a little bit about what the data that you're receiving and how business in the Bahamas has been faring.
Well, you're right. The unemployment rate continues to rise, and the recent restrictions and lockdowns have had a significant impact on businesses at every level, whether it's a small business or a large corporation. Every business has had to take a serious internal look at its operating plan, its business model, how it should now rethink and reform its business operations with a view of now operating within a post-COVID environment. Businesses have been literally suffering quite a bit, and going forward, it's going to require quite a bit of rethinking, restructuring as a part of the day-to-day operations. As I said earlier, no business has been exempted from feeling the pressures of the COVID pandemic, but at the end of the day, one of the things that we have the capacity to do is to rethink. We know that we're going to get through this pandemic. The question, though, is how do we come out of it? What are we going to learn? What adjustments have to be made? How are we prepared to make those adjustments? And then think of ourselves not only in the domestic context, but how do we rethink our businesses so that we operate in the global context?
I think that you're absolutely right. Here at RBNTV, we say that we're Bahamian focused, but we're also globally minded. And so to your point, it seems as if that's the way the business should really be thinking and retooling. You mentioned something very critical, that it's important that businesses And COVID-19 has allowed us to really hit the reset button, to really reevaluate our strategies, our business models and business plans to see how we can move forward. What strategies can managers and leaders use in terms of their reevaluating? What's important for managers and leaders to look at when it's time to reevaluate their business?
Well, one of the core things that we encourage businesses to do is to really look at what you establish as your core business. What was that business model that allowed you to operate to this point? Evaluating that, looking at the original vision that was cast for your entity, and ask yourself, what changes do I have to make? Because out of this pandemic, there's a simple word we call evolution. While everybody is going to get through it, the business community is evolving, consumer needs are evolving, the way we do business is changing right before our eyes. So one of the primary things we encourage businesses to do is look at the business model that you had and look and see what emerging needs are coming out of this pandemic and how best you can adjust your business model to not just meet today's evolving business needs on the consumer side, but how do you position yourself to continue to meet those evolving needs? Secondly, we talked about the consumer. The consumer is going through a very difficult time, equally as the business provider is. But at the same time, his needs are changing. How do we best reposition ourselves to understand better what his needs are and how best we can meet that need? It may require too, though, Carey, that in the evaluation of that business model and then understanding what those evolving needs are, we may find that we have to change our business model altogether if we want to stay in business. And then the other component that I alluded to earlier is, how does my business model allow me to take into consideration that I'm no longer living in the Bahamas, relying on a domestic economy as the size of the Bahamas, but can my services or products be offered regionally or globally, and what changes do I need to make? The other part of it is, how do I allow my business to be evaluated to see where the digital and innovation gaps are? Up until the pandemic, many Bahamian companies basically operated in the traditional way, didn't embrace technology, didn't integrate technology, didn't move to the innovative thinking component. Well, this is a great opportunity now to take a look at technical innovations. One of the things I like to refer to is the Global Competitive Index. And that's a global rating that looks at countries and it lists them, they're competitive in certain areas. And two of those areas that I believe that we have a huge opportunity in the Bahamas at every level of our business community is, one, how we integrate technology into our business, how we encourage innovative thinking to ensure that our business are evolving and keeping pace, not with domestic demand, but with global demand. Because what we have to remember is we need to be thinking locally, but behaving globally.
Very important and critical. And, just your international focus is something that I think that it's a huge opportunity for Bahamian businesses. And you talked about technology. How specifically can Bahamians and Bahamian businesses leverage technology to their benefit and for the comparative advantage of their business?
As it relates to technology, there are several basic things that businesses can do. Early in the pandemic response, we saw that about 50% of Bahamian companies were not able to respond to the lockdown by using technology to deliver their services. Now we're seeing many companies develop their platforms as simple as a website. If they did have a website, it was like a single page, not a lot of information, no customer interaction. Now, all of a sudden, they're beginning to realize that my website is critical to my business. Why? People can't come to me, but they can go to my website. The other part of that turned out to be that not only do I need to have a website, but I need to have a website that tells every bit of detail about my business or my services or my products, who we are, what we do, what can we do for you, our business hours, do we deliver, how do we deliver, and then do you have the ability to conduct commerce, trade? Can I place my orders online? Can I pay for them online, and how can I pick them up or have them delivered? That became a a huge component to getting a lot of businesses back up and running, because in an environment where we were asked to close our doors, it didn't mean that we should stop doing business, but because most people didn't embrace or integrate technology pre-COVID, it provided some lag time in terms of them getting up to speed. The other value of technology integration meant that the major question to be asked is, how do I use technology to get my message out to my market? Who is my market? How do I conduct surveys? How do I get feedback from my potential customers? And how do I take that data, turn that into an active plan where I can market more specifically, I can speak more specifically to my clients' needs, and then I can speak more specifically to the services that we need. In fact, the data may lead to me being able to expand my business model to include more of my customers' needs. So then I actually have an opportunity to integrate technology to enhance and to grow my business just in those small, sweet steps. In addition to that, I mentioned earlier about the importance of us thinking domestically but behaving globally. Using technology to get my message out and to share information about my business now allows me an opportunity to expand my base well beyond the borders of the Bahamas. I may just have a unique product or service that can be used in the region, or somebody around the world is looking to access the solution that I offer. So the integration of technology is a huge component to business recovery today, but is also a huge component of future business sustainability and creating the environment where businesses can actually grow in a non-contact environment.
Very interesting. As you say, that business agility is very important. It's a critical and vital important part to the post-COVID and the COVID era that we're going through right now. You spoke about the evolving nature of business, and it also speaks to the evolving nature of consumer needs and consumer demands. Spending is very limited. And so how has the consumer's needs, demands, and their spending choices, have they changed during the pandemic? And how do you see that evolving moving forward?
Well, let me start at the very basis in that consumer spending has changed because there are fewer and fewer people working, so which means that people are going to prioritize how and when they spend money. Secondly, with fewer people working, there's less money in the system domestically, and so that too has an impact on how fast businesses recover. But one of the more positive things coming out of this is that because there are fewer dollars at the moment, and yes, we are trying to get the economy going by opening more and more sectors. But what it means, though, is that consumers are going to be very specific about how they spend, what they spend, and where they spend. How that benefits the service provider is, as business owners, we now have to be very, very much on our game. Because if I now have to compete for that dollar that you're thinking twice about spending, I have to be sharper. I have to be more customer oriented. I have to put greater focus on customer service. I have to put greater focus on my customer experience. I have to be able to deliver when and how I say that. If I tell you I can do it in 24 hours, I have to be able to do that in 24 hours. Why? Because with the changing of consumer spending and consumers being more guarded and how they spend, when they spend, why they spend, it means that we have to, as service providers, have to be on top of our game, because that dollar is being considered twice as it was before. When people had money, they had no issue, payday come, they spend money however they wish. It's no longer the case. So consumer spending habits have changed, which puts the burden of responsibility on the service provider. On the other hand, consumers, because they have less money to spend, are not going to be as quick to run out and look to just keep spending money. What they're going to be looking for is, while the service provider is looking to broaden his market into the region and to the global market, consumers also have access to regional and global markets, which gives the competitive advantage to the consumer, because he has now a number of markets he can shop in for his very precious dollar. So It means then that the service provider in the Bahamas has to become the number one contender for that consumer dollar in this changing environment.
Well, you're right. It looks like Bahamian businesses now have to be the business of choice because Bahamian consumers are able to shop really anywhere. From Australia to the United States, anywhere in South America. The internet and technology has really flattened the world. And so to your point, we have to be that much more astute as business people.
It has. And what it requires us to become, we have to consider everything from advertising to quality of my product, quality of the people that I have. Do I have a call center that's active? Do I have a call center that's interactive? Do I have a call center that runs 24/7? We have to look at the models of our global competitors, and we have to make those adjustments, because the truth of the matter is the way we've always conducted business is not going to go back to what it was in January 2020. The global competition is a reality, and we can't continue to decry that. We have to adjust to it. We can be better. We can be more competitive. We can provide better service. We can provide better quality products. I had someone call me the other day looking for a particular product, and I said, look, call so-and-so. Their company, this is part of their core business. Only to find out the response they got from the company is, well, we don't do that. And so the guy called me back and says, well, what should I do? I said, well, you've got to go scour the web and see who provides it. Whether there's another company in the Bahamas that provides that service. Is there one in Jamaica? Is there one in Belize? Is there one in Trinidad? Is there one in Canada? Is there one in the United States? Is there one in Europe? At the end of the day, consumers will find the best product at the best price, at the best quality, and they will make a conscious decision. And Bahamian consumers have that choice, which means then that Bahamian businesses must take advantage of the opportunity they have as well.
Excellent point. Just as you said, that there have been gaps in the marketplace where Bahamian businesses sometimes just leave money on the table. The perfect example that you left right there. What industries do you think will do well in a COVID or post-COVID era?
Well, I believe that most of the businesses relative to tourism will do well. Tourism will still be a global juggernaut. It'll take some time to recover, but I also believe that in this recovery time, it provides us a unique opportunity, Carey, to examine how we have done tourism in the past. Who's involved and how can they get involved? I think many smaller tourism-oriented components are going to be considered to be very vibrant opportunities. Give an example. Before COVID, it may have taken you several $1 million to get involved in the rooming component. Nowadays, with the Airbnb uptake, it may not take you a couple $1 million. You can develop several rooms, several small apartment-style Airbnbs, and get involved in the tourism product. The other part of it is the technology sector is going to be provide very good opportunities. The Bahamas has a unique disposition in that it has a lot of ground to make up in the technology integration. It has a lot of education and training to be done in the technology space. It has a lot of opportunity for those currently in the IT space. As you know, information technology is a very diversified sector, but it now provides tremendous opportunities for networking and infrastructure development, for help desk organization, for writing software and programs. But it also provides a unique opportunity for Bahamians in the space to get involved in training. One of the areas that we know that we have to focus on, Carey, is how do we reskill and retrain our current workforce? We know that of the 40% of the people not working, a good number of them may not return to jobs that they previously had, but they do require retraining. So there's a pretty good opportunity for Bahamians to get involved in the technology space, in the tourism space. And then the other side of technology, we talk a lot about web hosting and server hosting. The Bahamas has a tremendous opportunity to offer itself as a great jurisdiction to host such services. We have an opportunity to cater and to respond to the need of global entities. Many entities around the world are looking for places like the Bahamas to host their health centers. Guess what? We are an English-speaking destination. Most global entities are looking for global destinations that speak English. English is the predominant service language. Why not take an opportunity to look at how the Bahamas can reposition itself to become a very viable destination for help centers, call centers. The other thing that we need to consider that we talk about opportunities is agriculture. Tremendous opportunity. We talk about food security in the Bahamas, but we also at the same time talk a lot about arable land. Well, how about us focusing really on food production? What can we produce on all these wonderful islands that we have? I'm a firm believer. We talk a lot about these tens of thousands of arable land, but I think it's important for us to now look island by island, have a real assessment done by real qualified agriculturalists and determine what products can we best grow on each island and have a long-term strategy to begin to grow those products, not only to meet our domestic need and secure up our food security component, but how do we turn those products into export products that will help strengthen our foreign reserves and increase our capacity to trade?
A whole lot of great information. You spoke about 40% of our workforce is currently out of work. A lot of that from the tourism sector and others, another hospitality sectors as well. What sort of skills, you started to talk about technology, but what other skills do you think that business in a post-COVID era will be needed from our workforce?
Well, if we look at it from as a business owner and as a chamber leader, we've always been challenged with the quality of the high school graduate, right, in the first instance. So we need to look very seriously at how we educate and the methods we use to educate so that we're producing a high school graduate that is better fit and better educated to get into the workforce. I go back to something Jack Na said to us several years ago at a conference when speakers were being asked to address the issue of job creation. And everybody talked about how a solution to provide getting light industries and other major industries. And when Jack Na came up to speak, he says, look, I'm going to say something totally different than all of my colleague speakers. And he said, what is the point of creating and attracting foreign investment to your country to create jobs and you don't have people qualified to fill them? And it caused us to think the most important focus is to really focus on our basic educational engine, which is our educational system. And then how do we retrain a good portion of those 40%? Because at the end of the day, those people were working in a pre-COVID environment. Now that COVID has set in and the work environment has changed, of that 40%, how many of them are actually ready and skilled to go back into the workplace that is going to be more technology driven, more innovative driven? So the opportunity there for us to consider areas to focus on is let's do an assessment. Where are our people and what are the skills we need to cause the Bahamas to be a productive, viable, high-producing jurisdiction that will cause us to be attractive to foreign and local investments so that we're getting a greater yield for our dollar that's being invested. So I think those two areas, education, how we educate and to what extent are we educating to get our people ready for the workplace, and then how do we have a strategy that focuses on retraining those people already in the workplace but need to have their skills upgraded to ensure that we are a viable and competitive destination.
We haven't talked government. And so we know last Wednesday, the Minister of Finance and the Ministry of Finance have also spoke about how much money that they've allocated towards small businesses, to self-employed persons, to entrepreneurs. It's been around the $255 million, and it sounds like quite a bit. But tell us, is that enough? And does government need to, what more can government do to shore up the business community in a really difficult COVID business environment?
Well, it was a good question, and I think it is because we saw in the first two iterations of the small business grant and low interest loan program, it was very much oversubscribed. So that was a great thing. On the heel of that, we must work with these small and medium-sized businesses to help them position themselves to attract private sector money. Okay, because government by itself can't continue to keep funding. These businesses must now be helped to strengthen their operations, to strengthen and streamline their operations so that they become profitable, so that they become attractive to private sector partners, whether it's through venture capital or any other format. So it's important then that we work very diligently to keep those businesses headed in the right direction so that we can better provide private sector money that can work in concert with government loans and grants. And then at the end of the day, how do we ensure that we work more synergistically in the private sector and government to flesh out practical policies that will be attractive to domestic and foreign investors? We must do that. We must work with that in concert. We need the foreign dollar. Yes, we do need the foreign dollar, but we need to also work on creating a business environment with policymakers that will encourage Bahamians to invest, and not just in owning businesses outright as entrepreneurs, but how do we get Bahamians to invest in other Bahamian businesses? How do we work to get our stock market in the Bahamas BISEX more robust by getting more businesses on that trading platform where more Bahamians can actually invest, put some capital in, and begin to see these businesses grow in earnest.
So as we draw to a close, tell us a little bit about what lessons do you think, and maybe we're still too close because we're in the middle of the pandemic. Hopefully we're getting to the other side, but we're definitely in the second wave. But what lessons can we learn from, coming through this very difficult COVID era? What could we learn in the business community?
I think one of the more vibrant lessons we learned was to pay attention to the global landscape. As things change, we must be able to recognize those changes and begin to appreciate the fact that as global changes take place, they impact the Bahamas and how they impact our businesses. So we have to be more globally minded in our day-to-day business. I think the other lesson that was learned was the importance of keeping good financial records and making sure that we pay attention to the nuances and to the subtle changes in the business environment. Being able to have continuity plans, what-if plans. Those are some of the things that I believe that we have learned. We're now learning the value of a strong, robust private sector and how critical it is for that private sector to work more closely and synergistically with government as the regulator, not necessarily as a forerunner. I believe, and we believe at the Chamber, that a strong private sector environment is one of the best allies that any government, anywhere in any democracy, can have.
Thank you. Final question. You have a lot of young Bahamian entrepreneurs who are thinking about starting a new business. What advice would you give them?
Research, research, research. Make sure that your idea is researched thoroughly, that when you take your idea and you turn that into a business plan that is very fact-based, and that is a very exhaustive plan that includes your financial profile, your operation profile, and your marketing profile, and then a communications profile. It is critical that you do that. And then the advice that I would give is ask for help. Don't believe that you can have to do this on your own. One of the greatest successes you can have in life is learning where to go, how to ask for help, and making sure that you get that help propels you to the front of the pack.
Mr. Jeffrey Beckles, this has been a fascinating and enlightening conversation. Thank you very much for joining us on Forward, Upward, Onward Together. If anyone in our business audience wanted to reach out to you, where can they do so? You can reach me privately on LinkedIn. You can reach me at jeffreybeckles@gmail.com. You can reach me area code 242-826-0076. Be happy to share my thoughts with you. And always, you can reach out to the Bahamas Chamber of Commerce at info@thebahamaschamberofcommerce.com, 322-2145. We will be willing and ready to assist however best we can. Mr. Beckles, thank you so much for your service to the Bahamas Chamber of Commerce. I wish you well on your future endeavors. And again, thank you very much for joining us on Forward, Upward, Onward Together. And to our viewing audience, thank you for watching. We'll see you next week.
You're watching RBNTV. We are networking, promoting, we're scoring points for you, proclaiming, declaring, here to encourage you. No matter the problem, we will enlighten you. We hear you, please listen. There is a point of view. You're watching RBNTV. We're transforming minds, empowering lives, inspired by kingdom.